AJ Styles possibly suffers an injury during a WWE live event. Speaking of injuries, Bray Wyatt also reveals he suffered an injury during his in-ring return at Madison Square Garden on December 26. Dragon Lee has signed with WWE. We've got an update on him turning down AEW, plus the details behind his signing with the company. We have the ratings for this week's edition of NXT. Roman Reigns has a message for John Cena and Kevin Owens ahead of that major tag team match live on SmackDown on Fox tonight. Kevin Owens reveals what Stone Cold Steve Austin said to him prior to their WrestleMania match earlier this year, and an update on the broadcasters for WWE and AEW suffering major viewership losses this year. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of World Wrestling Entertainment. And let's start off talking about some serious news regarding AJ Styles possibly suffering an injury during a WWE live event. And it has also been confirmed this is indeed not a work, which some people was hoping is the case. But indeed, it looks like it's not, because a top WWE star was unable to finish a match at a house show due to an apparent injury, according to fans in attendance. While WWE had a house show in Hershey, Pennsylvania, the referee held up the surefire sign that something had legitimately gone awry, the X symbol. Now, an over-the-top rope spot involving, during the match between the OC, which was AJ Styles, Carl Anderson, Luke Gallows, and Mia Yim, at ringside, and Judgment Day, Finn Balor, Damian Priest, Dominic Mysterio with Rhea Ripley at ringside, was noted as, quote, nasty, according to some fans in attendance. It was after this over-the-top rope spot that the referee was noted to stop the match, throwing up the sign to the back, with the trainers coming to ringside to check on what was going on with the now down AJ Styles, with fans noting that Styles had appeared to sustain some kind of injury to his lower leg or perhaps his ankle. We will have to await further details from WWE or Styles himself. Obviously, we wish Styles the very best in his recovery, but an update has now emerged on AJ Styles following this injury scare at the December 29 WWE house show in Hershey, Pennsylvania. Following this scary top rope spot, as I mentioned, the referee threw up the X signal while Styles was down on the outside. Now, Styles was helped to the back after the match, with the popular star reportedly struggling to put weight on his left foot. PW Insider has provided an update on the situation, shooting down speculation that the injury was a work. In the past, WWE has done injury angles on live events that bleed in to TV shows. One of the most famous ones in more recent history was Randy Orton suffering a knee injury. This was actually during a time, ironically enough, he was feuding with AJ Styles. He came out on Raw and was like, I've suffered a knee injury, I hope to be back at WrestleMania. It was all a work. He hit Styles with an RKO. It was a big angle, but that's not the case here. Per the report, the injury was 100% legitimate and Styles will be getting it checked out as soon as possible. While fans initially suspected that Styles had hurt his leg, PW Insider have specified that it is now believed that Styles suffered an ankle injury. The timetable of his return is unclear as of the recording right now, so it's unclear when he will return to the ring, if he has to take time off to recover, how severe or not serious the injury is. Of course, if we get a further update, we'll let you know here on the channel. But here's hoping it's not serious. I mean, AJ Styles is one of the top performers in WWE. Yes, I know he's older at this point in his career, but he's still the phenomenal AJ Styles. He still does fantastic work. And the best way of looking at it is this. Obviously, look, if it's a long-term injury, suffering it now is just the worst time because we're heading into Royal Rumble season and we're heading into WrestleMania season. However, to suffer an injury prior to WrestleMania, this is kind of the best time to do it, if that makes sense, because there is still plenty of time. There is still time to recover between now and April, and that's the key thing. Once you start getting into those sort of February and March months, if you get hurt, you're out. You're out of WrestleMania, and you don't want to miss the biggest show of the year. You don't want to miss WrestleMania, especially when you're like AJ Styles, when, let's face it, he's probably got 4 or 5 WrestleManias left in him. So, again, here's hoping it's just an ankle sprain or something something like that, and he can be back for the Royal Rumble. If it's a bit more serious, he's hoping he can be back in time of WrestleMania. If it's a broken ankle, we might have a bit of a problem on our hands there, but we don't know. That's speculation at this point, and we really don't know. And if we get an update, as I mentioned, we'll let you know here on the channel. Another person who suffered an injury is Bray Wyatt. Now, fortunately, this isn't as serious as possibly the AJ Styles injury or anything like that, because another top star has suffered possibly an injury. With Bray Wyatt telling fans he broke his finger at a live event. Now, Wyatt returned to the ring during the holiday tour of WWE's live event loop, notably defeating Jinder Mahal at the December 26 Madison Square Garden house show. The bout marked Wyatt's first match since losing to Randy Orton at WrestleMania 37 in April 2021. Wyatt also defeated Mahal at the December 28 and December 29 house shows in Greensboro, North Carolina and Miami, Florida, respectively. Now, the popular star didn't leave Miami completely unscathed, with Wyatt apparently believing he had suffered a broken finger during the bout. While greeting fans after the match, Wyatt did reveal that he believes certainly that he broke his finger. He showed his finger, claiming that he had broke it during the bout. It's currently unclear whether Wyatt has genuinely broken his finger, suffered another hand injury, or was simply working the fans. Of course, after weeks of White Rabbit teases, Wyatt made his WWE TV return at the Extreme Rules Premium Live event in October, following his WWE release in the summer of 2021. Of course, he's yet to return to the ring on television, but has found himself at odds with LA Knight in recent weeks. And we actually have a clip of Wyatt greeting and talking to the fans after this match and revealing that he had indeed broken his finger. Here's a closer look at what Wyatt had to say.
Bray, we've been waiting all year for this selfie.
Fuck, Warriors love Bray. We love Bray, man. We love you, man. We've been waiting for you to come back.
Always great to see Wyatt interact with fans, because you very rarely see it. And obviously, I don't think it's anything too serious. Bray Wyatt's not going to be missing any time or anything like that. He's fine. He's working with the injury, so broken fingers happen all the time in pro wrestling. He's fine. Dragon Lee is heading to WWE, a big story this week after he won the AAA World Tag Team Championships from AEW's FTR. He's now going to WWE. And we've got quite a lot of details on this. First, coming from Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, Dragon Lee confirmed that he'd signed with WWE after winning the AAA Tag Team titles on December 28. Some details were revealed by ESPN's Mark Raimondi, detailing that Dragon Lee had signed with WWE earlier this month. Now, Fightful are reporting that they have learned a bit more about how this whole thing came together. As highlighted in the ESPN piece, former WWE Senior Director of Talent Development Canyon Seaman had expressed interest in Dragon Lee before it was decided he wouldn't be brought in. Fightful were told that WWE had expressed interest after Dragon Lee had appeared on AEW television earlier this year and swooped in and came to an agreement with him when they found out he didn't have a contract with the company. Those that Fightful spoke to had indicated that Dragon Lee had also pushed for his brother, Dralistico, who had performed as Dragon Lee and Mystico in the past, to join WWE as well, but WWE passed on him for the time being. On Thursday afternoon, it was indicated to Fightful that a, quote, big NXT signing would be coming later that day without further details. They since learned that the deal that Dragon Lee signed for was more of an NXT scale deal as opposed to a Raw and SmackDown deal, so he's not going to be making main roster money, not right now anyway. Now, WWE reportedly had cameras at the AAA show on December 28 filming and will report to the Performance Center over the next few weeks. AAA was aware that the signing was coming, at least as of a couple of weeks ago, and informed those on a need-to-know basis that it indeed was happening. Those that Fightful spoke to didn't believe that AEW was caught off guard by it, basically suggesting that AEW and Tony Khan were aware that Dragon Lee indeed was signing with WWE. ESPN also highlighted that Finn Balor had reached out to Dragon Lee to help facilitate the deal, and Fightful were told more things like this could happen for high-profile free agents in the coming years. Now, of course, today being Friday... Oh, gosh. Now, of course, with today being Friday, you know what that means. Dave Meltzer has written extensively in the Wrestling Observer newsletter about Dragon Lee choosing to sign with WWE, and he's actually revealed he took an offer to sign with WWE over AEW. In the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Meltzer reported that, quote, AEW had also made an offer to Lee. One friend of his told us that Lee had come to him looking for advice, likely from him and others, on which offer to take. Meltzer would provide further details of the WWE contract that Dragon Lee is likely to have taken, explaining, quote, from a money standpoint, it was obviously more than Mexico, but we were told that the WWE offer was above the standard NXT level money, but not the main roster money. Basically saying he's making more in developmental than most people, but he's not making main roster money, like we just said a second ago. WWE contracts have a confidentiality clause in that the talent and their representatives are not allowed to reveal the dollar amount. If he was to get called up to the main roster, the general rule is a new contract is signed and the bottom number for the main roster is $250,000 per year. Where this positions Dragon Lee in the company was also explored by Meltzer, who stated, quote, the belief is he would be the highest paid NXT wrestler now that Mandy Rose is no longer working for the brand. It's a 3-year deal that does call for pay increases with each year, but the hope and certainly the feeling he was given is that he would have a main roster contract and he would be brought up in 2024. Of course, Dragon Lee recently announced he was signed with WWE after Lee and Dralistico's match at AAA Noche de Campeones event. Triple H, of course, initially announced the signing, and WWE released a statement shortly thereafter. Now, to give a bit more of an update as to how long WWE have been interested in Dragon Lee, according to Meltzer, WWE had previously been interested in Lee whilst he was still in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Meltzer writes, quote, WWE had expressed an interest in Lee because they were aware he was on AEW television recently but had no contract. There was interest in Lee in the past, but at the time he was loyal to New Japan. Plus, he got a much better offer from Ring of Honor than what WWE offered him when he was negotiating in the past with Canyon Ceman. But then Ring of Honor basically shut down. Of course, Dragon Lee most notably wrestled for New Japan from 2017 to 2020, with his most recent bout for the promotion taking place at the New Japan New Beginning in Osaka in 2020. As I mentioned, he visited AEW during the summer, teaming with Andrade El Idolo and his brother Roosh to face Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks at the August 17 Dynamite House of the Dragon special. He had previously wrestled Roosh at the July 23 Ring of Honor Death Before Dishonor event, but as I mentioned, he is now going to WWE. Now, in terms of why he decided ultimately to sign with WWE, Meltzer writes, quote, it came down to the idea that right now AEW is so loaded with talent and he is expected, as talented as he is, there are so many people who would be ahead of him, like Rey Fenix, Penta, Roosh, and Bandido. And there's only so many people they can feature with how they do television, let alone the number of Mexicans who are great workers but not great English speakers. As talented as he is, he'd almost certainly be lost in the mix in AEW, or at least that's what people who gave him advice believed. Reports recently stated, as I mentioned, WWE was seeking to sign standout talent, with Lee being an example of this. When it comes to people welcome him, as I mentioned, Triple H had previously reached out or officially announced the signing and welcomed Dragon Lee to WWE, and WWE Hall of Famer and current Senior Vice President of Talent Development Creative Shawn Michaels is another WWE personality that can be added to the list of those hyping up Lee following the signing. He tweeted out, quote, excited to continue building depth and adding talent to the roster. Welcome to NXT, Dragon Lee. Michaels has been in charge of NXT's creative team for years now, following Triple H suffering a major heart issue and eventually moving up to the main roster to become its head of creative and head of talent relations. Michaels received his current role that he's in. So basically, the long and short of it is that he decided to sign with WWE because he made good money, more than he was making in Mexico. Not necessarily more than he'd be making in AEW, but more than he'd be making in Mexico. And he felt if he went to AEW, he'd get lost in the shuffle. And ultimately, I think that's the right call right now. As to what his future will look like in WWE, we'll have to wait and see. The creative isn't necessarily the best in NXT right now, so it'll be interesting to see if he is indeed fast-tracked to the main roster after about a year or so on the developmental brand. Now, speaking of NXT, we have the ratings for this week's episode, and as you would expect, it's down considering we're close to the end of the year. The viewership figure and demo rating for Tuesday's December 27 edition of WWE NXT on USA Network has been revealed. Per Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics, NXT drew 588,000 viewers. This is down from the December 20 edition That drew 705,000 viewers. In the 18 to 49 demographic, Tuesday's show scored a 0.12 rating. This is also down from the week prior that scored a 0.14 rating. NXT ranked number 25 on cable in the demo for the night. The show featured Wesley defeating Tony D'Angelo to retain the NXT North American Championship in the main event. So, not great numbers, particularly down from last week's, and maybe last week's bump in the viewership was due to what happened with the Mandy Rose situation, more people being at home, I don't know. But this is a bit lower than what NXT, I guess, would be looking for. But to be honest, them drawing 705,000 viewers is kind of out of the norm for NXT, so it'll be interesting to see what indeed does happen when they move into 2023. Of course, tonight's SmackDown on Fox, and it's one of the biggest shows, if not the biggest SmackDown of the year, featuring the biggest match of 2022, certainly. Ahead of their major match on the last SmackDown of the year, Roman Reigns has a message for both John Cena and Kevin Owens. Roman Reigns' official Twitter account posted a match graphic for the big showdown, including the message, quote, "They'll be smashed in 2022 and forgotten by 2023. Hashtag SmackDown." Roman Reigns is set to team with Sami Zayn in a big tag team match against the returning John Cena and a partner for the evening, Kevin Owens. This will be Cena's only match during 2022, noting that he accepted Kevin Owens' offer as he has already wrestled a match in every year for the past 20 years in WWE. Elsewhere, of course, on the December 30 edition of SmackDown, a SmackDown Women's title match will take place with Ronda Rousey defending her championship against Raquel Rodriguez. We've also got Solo Sikoa facing Sheamus, so a jam-packed show, and we'll have more on that later on today on the channel. One of the biggest stories that kind of gets forgot about this year, Stone Cold Steve Austin wrestled this year in the WrestleMania main event against Kevin Owens. Now, he has actually revealed KO to Ryan Glass-Steagall, easy for me to say, of the New York Post. He recalled how the match came together. He said, quote, "I still don't have a full grasp on how that happened. All I know is I was told by several people, from Steve to Vince McMahon to Bruce Pritchard, it couldn't have been anybody other than you," meaning me with Steve. "I'm not sure who suggested it, who asked for it, or how it came about. One day I'll find out, but the point is that it's extremely flattering to me that all three of those people thought I was the best choice. There's really no higher compliment than that for me. It doesn't get any better than that. I said it after the match, it's all downhill from here." Now, of course, the rumors of Steve Austin wrestling once again have continued, with him looking in fantastic shape with matches rumored for WrestleMania 39 next year in Hollywood. Finally, an interesting story, how WWE and AEW broadcast networks have actually lost viewers and viewership in 2022. There's often nothing wrestling fans love more than dissecting the ratings and viewership numbers, good or bad, for the various wrestling shows out there, be it Dynamite or Raw or SmackDown or another program. Perhaps the new discussion, however, should be what the respective networks broadcasting these shows would be without them, as new information suggests the forecast could be grim. A Variety article on the winners and losers of TV in 2022 revealed that TBS, TNT, and USA, the homes of Dynamite, Rampage, and Raw, all took a decent dip in average viewers during prime time, after averaging 1.09 and 1.03 million viewers respectively in 2021. TNT and TBS were down to an average of 965,000 and 875,000. USA, meanwhile, slipped to from 848,000 last year to an average of 738,000 this year. Those worried that these dips in viewership are a poor reflection on either WWE or AEW programming can likely relax, however, as the Variety piece noted that most networks have seen a decline in average viewership, with the exception of the Paramount Network. The former home of Raw and TNA Impact, formerly called Spike TV, has bucked the trend largely thanks to the hit series Yellowstone, though even that success story hasn't stopped the network from losing viewership in the coveted 18 to 49 demographic. While both Raw and Dynamite have run their last episodes of 2022, Rampage still has one episode left, airing tonight in the usual time slot of 10 p.m. on TNT. So basically, as I've said, television before, this is what I've said before, television is dying and the ratings and the viewership will go down across the board every year, but there are still three things that draw today in cable television. That is live sports, with the NFL continuing to do well. That is cable news, with cable news continuing to do well. And that is pro wrestling. As much as we can talk about the ratings not being good for this show and that show, the ratings are still good for pro wrestling. And that's really why they are demanding such a high amount for their television contracts, because they're worth it. So there you go, guys. That's the latest WWE news for you. Be sure to smash the like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner. Let me know your thoughts on today's WWE news stories in the comment section below, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.